The message came at midnight. Every screen on Earth, every colony world, every ship floating in the dark between stars, all of them, showed the same face. It was not human. The creature had scales the color of dried blood, eyes like yellow fire, and a mouth full of teeth designed for tearing flesh. His name was War Master Roll, commander of the Vec Empire's Grand Fleet. "Humans," he said, his voice cold and sharp. "You have 72 hours. Surrender your outer colonies. Give us your resources. Bow before the Vec Empire, or we will erase you from existence." The transmission ended. Silence fell across 17 worlds. Admiralty Yuna stood on the bridge of the Defiance, Earth's largest warship. She was 52 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and scars on her hands from battles most people had forgotten. She watched the empty screen for a long moment. Then she turned to her officers. "Get me everything we have on the Vec," she said quietly, "and wake up the fleet." 3 days later, Space Orcs stood before the Galactic Concord. The assembly hall was enormous, filled with representatives from 2,000 species. Some floated in liquid tanks. Others breathed through masks. Many had shapes that human eyes struggled to understand. Sora was small among them, a human woman in a simple black suit, standing alone on a platform meant for giants. "Please," she said, her voice calm but urgent. "We ask only for mediation. The Vec have no right to our worlds. Help us find a peaceful solution." Laughter. It came from everywhere, clicking sounds, whistles, rumbles that shook the floor. The Vec ambassador, a massive creature twice the size of any human, stepped forward. He picked up Sora's datapad from the podium and crushed it in his clawed hand. Metal and glass fell to the floor like rain. "Peaceful solution?" he said. "You are soft-bodied primates. You crawled out of mud only yesterday. The Vec Empire has conquered 1,000 worlds. What are you? 17 planets of meat, waiting to be harvested." He turned to the assembly. "Does anyone here wish to defend the humans?" Silence. 2,000 species, and not one spoke. The Vec ambassador's smile door made the expression his species used for pleasure. "I thought not." He looked back at Sora. "Run home, little creature. Tell your people to prepare. The Vec are coming." Sora did not run. She stood there, looking up at the ambassador, and something changed in her eyes. It was not fear. It was something older, something that humans carried in their blood from a time when they hunted mammoths with sharpened sticks. "I will deliver your message," she said softly, "and when this is over, I will return. Remember this moment?" She walked out alone, her footsteps echoing in the silent hall. Back on Earth, Lieutenant Kongduan watched the defense stations power up their weapons. He was 28 years old, born on a colony ship, raised among the stars. He had never seen a real war. None of them had. Humanity had been at peace for over a century. "They have 3,000 warships," he said to Admiralty. "We have 400. The math doesn't work." The Admiral looked at him with eyes that had seen things he couldn't imagine. "War is not math, Lieutenant. It's will. It's the refusal to die when everything says you should. But how do we fight something like that?" She smiled, a thin, dangerous smile. "We don't fight like they expect. We fight like humans." The Vec fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system exactly 72 hours after their warning. 3,000 ships, each one bristling with weapons, arranged in perfect formation. They moved like a single organism, confident and unstoppable. They had done this 100 times before. They knew how it ended. The small species resisted for a few hours, maybe a day, then they broke. They always broke. War Master Roll sat on his command throne and watched Earth grow larger on his screen. Such a small planet. Such fragile creatures. He almost felt sorry for them. "Open a channel," he ordered. "Let us give them one final chance to surrender." The communication officer obeyed. Rawl's face appeared on every human screen once again. "Your time is up," he announced. "Surrender now, and we will spare your civilians. Resist, and we will burn your worlds to ash. This is your last no." The word cut through his speech. A human woman appeared on his screen at Moraltea Yuna, standing on her bridge with her hands clasped behind her back. "I'm sorry," Roll said, genuinely confused. "Did you say no?" "I did. We reject your terms. We reject your authority. And we reject your assumption that we will break."
Right.
She leaned forward slightly. "You want our worlds? Come and take them." Rahl stared at her. In 300 years of conquest, no species had ever spoken to him like this. They begged. They bargained. They wept. They did not challenge. "You cannot win," he said slowly. "You must know this." Admiral Tay smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of something that had evolved to chase prey across endless plains until that prey collapsed from exhaustion. It was the smile of a species that had survived ice ages, plagues, and its own self-destructive nature. "Perhaps," she said, "but we can make you pay a price so high that every species in this galaxy will think twice before threatening humanity again. We can hurt you in ways you cannot imagine, and we can do it while looking you in the eyes." She paused. "Congratulations, War Master. You've just declared war on the most deadly species alive. Now, come and learn why the universe should have left us alone." The transmission ended. Rahl sat in silence for a long moment. Around him, his officers waited for orders. Finally, he spoke. "Begin the attack." The first battle for humanity's survival had begun. And somewhere in the stars, watching through long-range sensors, 2,000 species held their breath. They expected to witness an extinction. They were about to witness something far more terrifying. The first VEC attack hit Defense Station 7 like a hammer. Plasma fire tore through the outer hull, and alarms screamed through every corridor. Commander Park Jin-ho felt the floor shake beneath his feet as he ran toward the breach. Behind him, 40 soldiers followed the best fighters Earth had ever trained. "They're boarding," someone shouted through the radio. 30 VEC warriors, maybe more. "They're cutting through the lower decks." Ginho smiled. He was 40 years old, with a face that rarely showed emotion and hands that had killed in more ways than most people could name. His soldiers called him the Ghost. The VEC were about to learn why. "Cut the lights," he ordered. "All of them. Let's see how well they fight in the dark." The station went black. On the command ship, Dr. Ominji stood before a room full of generals and admirals. She was a xenobiologist, a scientist who studied alien life. For 20 years, she had researched every species the galaxy had to offer. Now, her knowledge might save humanity. "You need to understand something," she said, pointing to images on the screen. "The VEC are strong. They're fast. They have natural armor that can stop small weapons. But they have a weakness that none of them even know about." "What weakness?" Admiral Tay asked. "Their minds." Minji changed the image to show brain scans. VEC on one side, human on the other. "Look at this." The VEC, like most galactic species, evolved from prey animals. Their ancestors were hunted. Their instincts tell them to flee from danger, to submit when a stronger enemy appears. They overcame this through technology and numbers, but deep inside, they are still afraid. She pointed to the human brain. "We are different. Humans evolved as apex predators. Our ancestors didn't run from danger, they ran toward it. We hunted animals 10 times our size. We chased prey for days, never stopping until it collapsed from exhaustion. We are persistence hunters. The only species in the known galaxy that kills through pure, endless determination." The room was silent. "The VEC expect us to break," Minji continued. "Every species breaks eventually. They show strength, the enemy shows fear, and the war ends. But humans don't work that way. When we're threatened, we don't feel fear the same way others do. We feel rage. We feel focus. We become more dangerous, not less." Admiral Tay nodded slowly. "So we use this. We don't fight their kind of war." "Exactly. We fight our kind of war. Close quarters, darkness, uncertainty. We make them feel hunted, because that's what they are now. They just don't know it yet." On Defense Station 7, the VEC warriors moved through dark corridors, their weapons ready. They could hear sounds around them, footsteps, whispers, things moving in the shadows. Their heat sensors showed nothing. Humans were cold-blooded compared to them, almost invisible in the dark. "Stay together," the Vex squad leader ordered. His voice was not as steady as before. A sound came from above. One of his soldiers looked up and a human dropped onto him like a falling stone. The attack lasted 2 seconds. The Vec warrior was dead before he hit the ground, and the human was gone, vanished back into the darkness. "What was that?" someone shouted. "What was that?" They opened fire, plasma bolts lighting up the corridor, hitting nothing but walls. When the light faded, another soldier was gone. Then another. The squad leader's breathing grew faster. This was wrong. This was all wrong. Humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to surrender. Instead, they were hunting his warriors like animals. "Fall back," he ordered. "Fall back to the entry point." They ran. Behind them, in the darkness, Commander Ginho watched them go. He raised his radio. "They're retreating. Do we pursue?" Admiral Tay's voice came back clear and cold. "No. Let one escape. Let him tell the others what happened here." One Vec warrior made it back to his ship. He was shaking so badly he could barely walk. His commander demanded a report. The warrior looked at him with eyes full of something no Vec had felt in generations. Fear. "It came from the shadows," he whispered. "They didn't stop. They didn't slow down. They just kept coming. We shot them, and they kept coming. They are not like other species. They are not prey." He grabbed his commander's arm with desperate strength. "They are predators. They are hunting us." The report spread through the Vec fleet like a disease. Soldiers who had conquered 100 worlds began to look over their shoulders. Officers argued about tactics that had always worked before. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong on Earth. People watched the news and saw something they had not seen in generations. Human soldiers winning battles against impossible odds. Not through superior technology. Not through greater numbers. Through sheer, relentless will, Captain Ruhaniel flew her stealth ship, the Silent Wrath, directly into the Vec formation. Her crew had not slept in 40 hours. They didn't care. They had work to do. "Target their supply ships," she ordered. "They don't expect us to attack. They think we're hiding." Her weapons officer grinned. "Then let's teach them something about humans." The Silent Wrath struck 3 supply ships in 12 minutes, then vanished before the Vec could respond. It was a small victory. But small victories add up. War Master Rahl received report after report, each one worse than the last. Boarding parties destroyed. Supply lines disrupted. Soldiers refusing to enter dark spaces. This was not how war was supposed to work. The smaller species was supposed to crumble. That was the natural order. He called his senior officers to his chamber. "Explain this," he demanded. "We have 3,000 ships. They have a fraction of that. Why are we losing soldiers?" One officer stepped forward nervously. "War Master, the humans. They don't respond to threat displays. They don't submit when shown superior force. We've studied their history." He hesitated. "They have been fighting each other for their entire existence. War is not new to them. It's in their blood." Rahl slammed his fist on the table, cracking the surface. "They are small. They are soft. They should be afraid." "They are afraid, War Master." The officer's voice was barely a whisper. "That's what makes them dangerous. They feel fear, but they fight anyway. They use their fear as fuel. No species in the galaxy does this. None." Silence filled the room. Rahl looked out the window at the stars. For the first time in his long career, he felt something unfamiliar growing in his chest. Doubt and far away, on the bridge of the Defiance. Admiral Tayuna studied her tactical map and allowed herself a small moment of satisfaction. The Vec were learning. Soon, they would understand the truth. Humanity had never been weak. They had simply been waiting. The Vec occupied 3 human colony worlds in the first month of the war. They expected the civilians to obey. They expected quiet submission, broken spirits, and silent cooperation. They got none of these things. On Kepler-7, the largest occupied world, General Nam Yun-ho stood in an underground bunker, 50 meters below the planet's surface. Around him, 300 resistance fighters waited for orders. They were farmers, teachers, engineers, doctors, ordinary people who had never held weapons before the invasion. Now they held weapons every day. The Vec have set up a command post in the capital, Yun-ho said, pointing to a map on the wall. They think they're safe there. They have walls, guards, sensors. They think we can't touch them. A young woman raised her hand. Her name was Corporal Lee Hown, and she was a medic. Before the war, she had worked in a hospital, treating children with broken bones and old people with failing hearts. Now she treated soldiers with plasma burns and shrapnel wounds. How do we get inside? She asked. Yun-ho smiled. It was not a kind smile. We don't need to get inside. We just need to make them understand that they will never be safe. Not for one moment. Not until they leave. That night, the resistance struck. Not at the command post that was too well defended. Instead, they hit supply convoys on the roads. They sabotaged power stations in the dark. They left messages painted on walls where Vex soldiers would see them. We are watching, we are waiting. We will never stop. The Vec responded with force. They burned buildings. They arrested civilians. They made threats and promises and demands. Nothing worked. For every fighter they killed, 2 more appeared. For every base they secured, 3 more attacks happened somewhere else. Engineer Choi Seung-hwa worked in a hidden laboratory beneath an abandoned factory. He was 45 years old, thin and quiet, the kind of man who preferred machines to people. Before the war, he had designed mining equipment. Now, he designed weapons. A resistance fighter brought him a captured Vec plasma rifle. Sung-woo took it apart piece by piece, studying every component. The technology was advanced 200 years ahead of anything humans had built. Most scientists would have needed months to understand it. Sung-woo understood it in 3 days. Their weapons are good, he told General Yun-ho the following week, but they're not perfect. They overheat if you fire them too quickly. The power cells are unstable if you modify the voltage. And the targeting systems held up a small device he had built. This will blind them. Every Vex sensor within 500 meters will see nothing but static. Yun-ho took the device and looked at it with wonder. You built this in a week? Sung-woo shrugged. I built 3 of them. Give me another week and I'll build you something that makes their rifles explode in their hands. This was humanity's secret weapon, not strength, not numbers, but adaptation. The Vec had spent thousands of years perfecting their technology. Humans had spent their entire history stealing ideas from each other, improving them, combining them in new ways. They were not inventors. They were improvisers, and they were very, very good at it. The Galactic Concord watched the war with growing unease. Their analysts had predicted human defeat within days. Instead, the war had stretched into months. And the Vec were losing ground. A classified report circulated among the member species. Human adaptation rate exceeds all known parameters. They reverse-engineered Vec plasma technology in 72 hours. They modified their own weapons to match within 2 weeks. They have begun producing hybrid technology that combines human and Vec systems. This should be impossible. No species adapts this quickly. We recommend immediate reassessment of humanity's threat level. On Kepler-7, Corporal Lee Hown moved through a field hospital, treating the wounded. A young soldier grabbed her arm as she passed. Half his face was burned, and his right leg was gone below the knee. Am I going back out there? He asked. His voice was weak but determined. Hown looked at him for a long moment. Any sane person would say no. Any reasonable doctor would recommend evacuation, therapy, a quiet retirement far from the fighting. Do you want to go back out there? She asked instead. Yes. She nodded and started treating his wounds. Then we'll get you ready. This was what the Vec could not understand. Human bodies broke, but human spirits did not. They suffered, they bled, they lost limbs and loved ones, and they kept fighting. Pain did not stop them. Fear did not stop them. Nothing stopped them. General Yunho watched his soldiers train in the underground bunker. They were tired, hungry, outnumbered, and outgunned. They should have been defeated long ago. Instead, they were stronger than ever. "Sir," a communications officer called out. "Message from Admiral Tay. The fleet has regrouped. They're preparing a counterattack." Yunho felt something warm spread through his chest. Hope. Real hope. "Tell the Admiral we'll be ready," he said. "When the fleet moves, we move with them. The Vec will be caught between two fires." He turned to his soldiers and raised his voice so everyone could hear. 6 months ago, the galaxy called us weak. They called us primitive. They said we would break. Look around you. Look at what we've done with nothing but courage and will. The Vec have 10 times our numbers and 100 times our resources, and they are losing. He paused, letting the words sink in. Tomorrow, we begin the next phase. We take back our world. We show the galaxy what happens when you push humans into a corner. We are not victims. We are not prey. We are the descendants of people who crossed oceans in wooden boats, who survived ice ages with nothing but fire and determination, who built civilizations in the most hostile places imaginable. His voice rose to a shout. "You're human, and we do not break." The soldiers cheered, a sound that echoed through the bunker and up through the rock, sound that the Vec patrols above could almost hear. It was the sound of a species that had been underestimated one too many times. And somewhere in space, Admiral Tay Yuna looked at her star charts and began planning the offensive that would change the course of the war. The Vec had come to conquer. They were about to learn the price of their arrogance. The hunt was about to begin. And this time, humanity would be the hunters. The Battle of the Crimson Nebula would be remembered for 1,000 years. 400 human ships against 1,200 Vec warships. The math said humanity should lose. The math was wrong. Admiral Tay Yuna stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the enemy fleet arrange itself for battle. The Vec moved in perfect formation, every ship in its proper place, every weapon aimed at the human line. They looked unstoppable. "They're beautiful," Lieutenant Kong Doan said quietly. He had grown in the past 6 months. The young, idealistic officer was gone. In his place stood something harder, something forged in fire. Beautiful and terrible. "They fight like machines," Admiral Tay replied. "Perfect coordination, perfect discipline. That's their weakness." "How is that a weakness?" She smiled. "Because machines don't adapt. They follow patterns. And patterns can be broken." She raised her voice. "All ships prepare for attack formation Delta 7, and remember, we're not trying to defeat them. We're trying to terrify them." The human fleet moved. But instead of holding a defensive line, they scattered. Ships flew in seemingly random directions, breaking every rule of space combat. The Vec commanders watched in confusion. This made no sense. This was chaos. It was not chaos. It was hunting. The human ships regrouped into small packs, 5 or 6 vessels working together, striking weak points in the Vec formation and vanishing before the enemy could respond. They hit supply ships and medical vessels and communication relays. They avoided the big warships entirely. "What are they doing?" War Master Roll demanded. "This is not how war is fought." His tactical officer studied the screen with growing horror. "They're not fighting a battle, War Master. They're hunting. They're picking off our weak ships one by one, then destroy them. We have 3 times their numbers. We can't catch them, War Master. They're too fast, too unpredictable. Every time we move to engage, they're already gone." Watched the battle unfold and felt his confidence crumble. He had fought 100 wars. He had never seen anything like this. The humans were not trying to win through force, they were trying to break his fleet's spirit. And it was working. The battle lasted 18 hours. 18 hours of relentless attacks, of ships appearing from nowhere and vanishing into the nebula's crimson clouds. By the end, the Vec had lost 400 ships. The humans had lost 60, but the numbers did not tell the whole story. The Vec fleet was broken. Soldiers refused to fly into the nebula. Captains questioned orders. The perfect discipline that had made them unstoppable was shattered. Admiral Tay addressed her crew as the Vec fleet retreated. "Today, we showed them what we are," she said. "Not victims, not prey. Predators. The deadliest predators this galaxy has ever seen. They came to conquer us. Now they will learn to fear us." Far away, on the Galactic Concord station, Ambassador Besora requested permission to address the assembly. This time, no one laughed. She walked to the podium and looked out at 2,000 species. Many of them had mocked her 6 months ago. Many of them had refused to help when humanity begged for peace. Now they watched her with different eyes. They watched her with fear. "You called us primitive," Sora began, her voice steady and clear. "You called us weak. You looked at our soft bodies and our short lives and saw nothing to fear. You forgot to ask the most important question." She paused, letting the silence build. "You forgot to ask why we survived our own planet?" Images appeared on the screens around the assembly hall. Earth's history. Ice ages that killed 90% of all life. Volcanoes that blocked out the sun for years. Diseases that swept across continents. Predators with teeth and claws designed to tear human flesh. "Our planet tried to kill us every day of our existence," Sora continued. "We survived. We survived because we are stubborn. We are creative. We refuse to die when everything says we should. Our ancestors hunted mammoths with wooden spears. They crossed oceans in boats made of animal skins. They built cities in deserts and on ice. They fought each other for 10,000 years, and they never stopped getting better at it." She looked directly at the Vec ambassador. He would not meet her eyes. "You wanted to know what makes humans dangerous? It's not our weapons. It's not our technology. It's this. We don't know when to quit. We have never known when to quit. Every enemy we've ever faced has underestimated us, and every enemy we've ever faced has learned the same lesson." Voice rose. "You cannot break us. You cannot scare us. You can kill us, yes. You can kill many of us, but you cannot make us surrender. Because surrender is not in our nature. We are the descendants of every human who refused to give up. Who kept fighting when hope was gone, who survived when survival was impossible. That stubbornness is written in our blood. It is who we are." She leaned forward. "So here is my message to the Vec Empire and to every species watching. The war ends when you withdraw from human space. Not when you've killed enough of us. Not when you've destroyed enough worlds. It ends when you leave. Because we will never stop fighting. Never. We will chase you across the galaxy if we have to. We will make this war so painful, so costly, that your grandchildren's grandchildren will still remember it." She straightened and adjusted her suit. "We didn't start this war, but we will finish it. On our terms." She walked away from the podium. No one spoke. No one moved. The assembly hall was silent as a grave. That night, the Galactic Concord received 300 applications for neutrality in the human-Vec conflict. Species that had laughed at humanity 6 months ago now wanted nothing to do with the war. And in his command chamber, War Master Roll stared at battle reports and knew in his heart that the war was lost. He could keep fighting. He could throw more ships and soldiers at the humans, but they would not break. They would never break. He had made a terrible mistake. He had woken something that should have been left sleeping, and now the galaxy was learning to be afraid. The human fleet arrived at the Vec homeworld on a cold morning in the Empire's capital. 1,000 ships built in the fires of war, crewed by soldiers who had learned to fight against possible odds, hung in orbit like a silent promise of destruction. Admiral Tayuna looked down at the planet below. Billions of Vec lived their families, children, ordinary people who had never asked for this war. Her weapons officer waited for orders. One command, and the planet would burn. One word, and humanity would have its revenge. Admiral Captain Kang Doan said quietly. He had risen through the ranks during the war, earning every promotion with blood and sacrifice. The fleet is ready. We can begin bombardment on your order. Tay did not respond immediately. She thought about the colonies the Vec had burned, She thought about the soldiers who had died under her command. She thought about the fear and rage that had driven humanity across the stars to this moment. Then she thought about what would come after. "No," she said. Duhan looked at her with surprise. "No. If we burn their world, we become what they thought we were. Monsters. Savages. Every species in the galaxy will unite against us, and they'll be right to do it." She turned to face him. "We came here to win the war, not to commit genocide. We're better than that. We have to be better than that." She opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Admiral Tay. Stand down all weapons. We will demand their surrender, not their extinction. Humanity does not murder civilians. That's not who we are," some officers protested. Some soldiers wanted revenge for fallen friends. But in the end, they obeyed, because they knew she was right. Victory through massacre was not victory. It was just a different kind of defeat. The Vec Emperor received humanity's terms 1 hour later. Complete withdrawal from all human space. Return of all prisoners. Payment for destroyed colonies. In a formal apology, broadcast to every species in the galaxy. The Emperor read the terms in his throne room, surrounded by advisors who had told him the war would be easy. None of them could meet his eyes now. They could destroy us, one advisor whispered. "Why don't they?" The Emperor did not answer. He had studied the humans during the war. He had watched them fight with terrifying determination. But he had also seen something else, something he had not expected. Mercy, restraint, the ability to stop. Most species, pushed to the edge of extinction, would have lashed out with everything they had. Humans had not. They had fought to win, not to annihilate. And somehow that made them more frightening. Not less. He signed the surrender. The ceremony took place on the Galactic Concord Station neutral ground. Witnessed by representatives from 2,000 species, Admiral Tay stood on one side. The Vec Emperor stood on the other. Between them, Ambassador Baysora read the terms of peace. When it was done, Emperor approached Admiral Tay. His guards tensed, but he waved them away. "I must ask you something," he said. His voice was quiet, meant only for her ears. "How did your small, fragile species defeat us? We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have armies beyond counting. You were nothing, a minor species in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. How?" Tay looked at him for a long moment. "You studied our bodies and saw weakness," she said. "Soft skin. No claws. No armor. You thought that made us easy prey? But you should have studied our history instead. Every empire that tried to conquer us is gone. Every disease that tried to kill us is defeated. Every ice age, every disaster, every extinction event, we survived them all." She stepped closer. "We don't just endure, Emperor. We overcome. We adapt. We remember every enemy who ever hurt us, and we make sure it never happens again. You wanted to know what makes humans dangerous? It's not our weapons. It's our memory. It's our ability to turn pain into strength. It's the simple fact that we never, ever give up." The Emperor held her gaze for a moment, then looked away. He had nothing to say. She was right, and they both knew it. The war was over. 3 months later, the Galactic Concord formally admitted humanity as a full member species. The vote was unanimous, not because the other species had suddenly grown to love humans, but because they were afraid to vote no. Baysora attended the ceremony as Earth's first ambassador to the Concord. She wore the same simple black suit she had worn when she had begged for help a year ago. The same species that had laughed at her now stood in respectful silence. As she took her place among them, a phrase had entered the galactic lexicon during the war. It was whispered in corridors and meeting rooms, passed from species to species as a warning: never wake the humans. On Earth, Captain Kong Dewan returned to his home colony for the first time in 2 years. He walked through streets that still bore scars from the war-burned buildings, empty lots where homes had once stood. But there were also new buildings going up, children playing in parks, people laughing and talking as if the nightmare had never happened. He found Admiral Tay at a memorial for the fallen. She stood alone, looking at a wall covered with names, soldiers, civilians, everyone who had died so that humanity could survive. "Do you think it was worth it?" he asked, standing beside her. She did not answer for a long time. I think about that question every day, she finally said. All the people we lost. All the things we had to do. Sometimes I wonder if we've become something we shouldn't be. And what do you conclude? She turned to face him, and he saw something in her eyes that he had not seen during the war. Peace. I conclude that we did what we had to do. We've protected our people. We showed the galaxy that we cannot be conquered. And when we had the chance to become monsters, we chose not to. She looked back at the wall of names. They would be proud of that. I have to believe they would be proud. On the observation deck of the new Concord Embassy Station, Bay Sora watched Earth rotate slowly below. The war was over. Humanity had taken its place among the stars. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to shape. A young aide approached her. Ambassador, the other species are asking questions about human history. They want to understand us better. What should I tell them? Sora smiled. A real smile, warm and genuine. Tell them the truth. Tell them we are a species that has been fighting for survival since the day we first walked upright. Tell them we have made terrible mistakes and achieved beautiful things. Tell them we are capable of great cruelty and great kindness, sometimes in the same breath. She paused, looking out at the stars. Can tell them this. We are still learning. We are still growing. We are not perfect, and we never will be. But we never stop trying to be better. That's what makes us human. The aide nodded and left. Sora stayed at the window, watching the stars' wheels slowly past. The galaxy had called humanity weak. They had called them primitive. They had tried to break them. They had failed. And somewhere, in the vast darkness between stars, 2,000 species whispered the same warning to each other. Never wake the humans.